Hey everyone, we are here with Yuri, CEO of bloXroute. He'll be doing a talk around using bloXroute's DeFi kit to trade faster on Uniswap. And I'll let him take it from here. For questions, can you just drop in the Ask a Question tab at the bottom? Thanks.
Thank you, and hi everyone, welcome. It's Sunday night, it's late, so I appreciate everybody joining. I'm Uri, as Sinju mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder of bloXroute. And because it's so late and because it's Sunday night, let's just jump into what I want to tell you guys about. If you're trading DeFi, and especially if you're trading Uniswap, here's what you probably think you're doing, right? You probably think that you're like this agile trader, right? Where you're kind of like hop to the left, hop to the right, try to capture value where you can, make good trades, jump over obstacles, don't get wrecked. And it's a DeFi, so mind the fees, don't pay too much, realize that you have to balance them, etc. But that's kind of like the image probably of what you think DeFi trading looks like. Reality, however, is very, very, very different. It's more like you have a friend who's seeing the game and he texts you something like, "Oh, dude, there's gold to the left." So you check it out and then you yell to your, younger brother, "Hey, John, press left." And then he clicks it. That's really what it's more like. And the chances of you actually making good trades this way is probably not that great. Hold on, something more. That's fine. And why is that? Why do I give you this example? Well, here's the why. Hold on, we're good. In Ethereum specifically, the trade, and in Uniswap specifically, the trade settles. When you try to make a trade, it goes, a transaction go, there's a transaction pool, you probably heard of it. And a new block is mined on average every 13 seconds. And this is where, the trade happens or settles. However, that's just on average. Blocks come and go randomly. In 10%, something like 10% of the cases, the next block is mined within a second. So a block is mined and the next block comes a second after that. The time it just takes you to hear off a block to know what's the current situation. You react, you say, "Oh, I want to send a trade." That transaction needs to propagate, need to reach the pools who send it to the miners to include it in the block. You probably take something like between best case scenario, a second and a half, worst case scenario, 3.5 seconds, until you can actually react on the situation. So by that time, going back to the previous example, the game had changed. Like by the time you heard about it and acted on that. And so you're losing out when you're trading on DeFi and when you're trading on Uniswap on 15 to 30% other opportunities. You're just not fast enough to act on them. And so going back to the game example, your friends text you about the goal. This is because it takes you 3 seconds to hear about a block happening. And what is the price? What's the DAI versus ETH price? And when you yell to your brother, "Oh, click left," that's you sending your transaction until they react to it. So that's the reality of what's really happening when you're trading on Uniswap and when you're trading in the world of DeFi. Enter bloXroute. bloXroute is a blockchain distribution network, or a BDN. We're actually networking people. Okay, bloXroute is working underneath the blockchain. So if you have in Ethereum, you have nodes and miners, and they're all connected. We're underneath that. We're more like AT&T or Comcast. We're just in the network layer sending data fast among everybody. So we allow miners and pools and anybody connected to us to hear off transaction and block fast and send transaction and block fast. We're also provably neutral, but that's a piece I'm not going to talk about in this talk. What the interesting point is that most top 20 pools in Ethereum are using bloXroute right now. That means that, all the blocks out there in production, on mainnet, it's not a test. It's not like, oh, on testnet or no. Actually, the real pools out there are using bloXroute to propagate blocks really fast among themselves and to hear about blocks and to send blocks and to hear transactions. And they actually do that because they want to reduce their uncle rate. Like they don't, like they're doing for their own reasons. This is this topic I'm not going to touch in this talk, but it does matter for anybody who's trading on Uniswap and anybody really in DeFi, because we allow you to hear about these things and send these things really, really fast. If you just want to, like, okay, there's this Uri guy, he talks about his company. This is a virtual summit, so you can hop on a different tab, just Google BDN Explorer, right? Do that right now. You'll see the, like, I don't have that open in front of me. What's right now, how long it takes for nodes and miners and pools to hear about blocks and transactions. Usually within 150 milliseconds, we propagate everything around the world, which is almost the speed of light. Now, going back for a second to what you care about, to trading on Uniswap, we tested how bloXroute compares to Infura and Alchemy and Chainstack. And we saw that if somebody is connected to bloXroute, he's seeing blocks between 1 and 3 seconds before they hear about it from Infura and Alchemy. And when they send a transaction, it gets something like 0.6 seconds faster to the pools. Now, again, who cares? Like, you're not high frequency. Most of you are not high frequency traders. Why do you care? Again, because if you're sitting there, your MetaMask open, and you're like, oh, price is changing. Now it's time for me to click on a trade. Yeah, it's not really then. By then, maybe that's not really the price that you're seeing. Maybe a new block was mined. You're seeing price that's no longer relevant. And also, when you send the transaction, yeah, by the time it reaches the miners and the pools, maybe it won't make it to the next block. Maybe the next block is already mined. So if you're hearing about blocks a second and a half to 3.5 seconds afterwards, you're missing out on 15 to 35% of the opportunities of the trade. You're just not fast enough to get them. So what are the services that we're offering? bloXroute allows you to do a few things. The basic, send transaction fast. Give it to us. We're directly connected to most pools out there. Even those who are not directly connected to us, they're connected to those who were connected. So really, we broadcast transaction very, very fast to everybody. Another thing that we actually got customers asking for us, they said, could you tell me about all the other transactions out there? Tell me about them really fast so I can act on it. Market makers care about that. Traders care about that. So if you're less of the MetaMask trader that you just manually do it, and you're more like, I have a program that runs like a trading bot and it hears what other people are doing, that's one of the things you might like. Get blocks fast. That means that if you're actually running a node, then you can really puts you ahead of the competition. You can know about what's happening and your bots before anybody else, so you can make better trades. We can also give on block stream. That just tells you which events happen. So if you don't run your own node, because really, who's running their own node? Like, we have a few customers that do. If you're big and you're good, it's actually probably the fastest way. But most people, they use Infura, they use Alchemy. And so, but they do want to hear about events. And again, they don't want to hear about it 3 seconds after they happen. They want to hear about, oh, the price of ETH just went up or went down on this, or I don't know, the pair like DAI versus whatnot. So you can just get a stream of these events as they happen in real time. This is really as fast as almost humanly possible. Another service that we're offering, I assume most of the people here have heard about Dan Robinson's The Dark Forest article, which is great. I loved it. But basically, he's talking about how if you identify an ARB opportunity and you're trying to send your transaction to capture it, there are bots out there that will take your transaction, replace your address with theirs, and if it's worth money, they'll front run you. So we offer front running protection. Because we're connected to all the pools, or not to all the pools, most pools, then you could give us your transaction, we'll give it to them, and one of them eventually would mine it without that ever being broadcast, not by us, not by the pools. Another thing that we offer is fee estimation and monitoring. Fee estimator, everybody knows what that is, right? That's that terrible thing that you put some price and it's never right. Fee monitoring is something that we actually think is very valuable, is where instead of, you identify a trade you want to make, you send a transaction, you say, well, I want that transaction to get in, I'll put, I don't know, 100 GWay. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's not a lot. But then you send it out and you're kind of like, well, now what? Now you wait. You have no idea whether that was a good estimation or a bad estimation. What are your chances of getting into the next block or not? So we actually give you real-time feedback. We say like, well, you know what? You have like 95% to be mined within the next block. Oh, you just went to 90. Oh, it went to 90 to 85. Oh, it was mined. So that gives you a way first, like to know the fee estimation, kind of like know what's happening, which brings us to the last service, at least the one mentioned here, the bump transaction. If you created a transaction, you put the fee that you think is right, but you think like you're monitoring and hold on, a major price change in ETH makes everybody starting to send transaction. Your 100 GWay that you put is really not going to get you anytime soon. What you really want is to resubmit that transaction and with a higher fee, and for that to get to the pools really, really fast. And so we provide that service as well. So that's who we are. That's kind of what we do. And how is that relevant for you guys really kind of depends on what type of trader you are. So if you're like the top tier trader in terms of you have an operation running, you have your own nodes that you run, and you have like your trading bots and everything, really what you want is to connect to the BDN, right? To go Google like look up bloXroute. You want like there's like simple instructions how to connect your nodes to connect also to the BDN. You'll get your transaction broadcast to everybody really fast. You'll get more updated data. You'll see the other services we offer. That's a no-brainer. If you're like in the in-between, right? You have like your trading bots and you have like the program that kind of like has some logic and that made trades based on that. But really you're not running your own nodes, which is most big traders nowadays. Most don't run their own nodes. You use either Infura or Alchemy or Chainstack. Well, at that point, there are two things you could do. One is that we have a cloud API. When you send the transaction, like do whatever you do, don't change anything what you do. But when you're about to send the transaction, also send it to bloXroute. That would make sure that your transaction at least is broadcast fast. Now, the other thing that you might want to do is to tell your provider, whether that's Infura or Alchemy or Chainstack, that, hey, would you mind connecting me with bloXroute? So we've been working and testing with both Infura, really all three of them. And the results are good. Like I told you, like you could, if you're using them, you could have heard about blocks 3 seconds earlier. You could have sent your transaction faster, but they're not sure if there's a really market for that. And so they said, well, let's see if customers want it. So, this is crypto. Go on Twitter and say, hey, Infura, or hey, Alchemy, I want my transaction to go through bloXroute. Tag us, tag them. That's pretty much it. If you're the third type, I won't call it a casual trader, but you don't have an operation. You don't have 3 traders working for you or whatnot. You have like your manual trading, you use MetaMask like so many of us do. Well, you're a bit screwed, okay? You're losing out. MetaMask, if you don't know, is also like, MetaMask and Infura is one and the same, okay? They're both like a single company, a spin out of Consensus. We spoke with them. They know of us. We've been friendly, and we have a solution coming out, should be out probably within the coming months. But really, there's no, it goes back to the previous. If you want this happening right now, tag MetaMask or tag Infura and say like, oh, would you mind giving us faster? We want to hear about all these blocks, all these transactions faster. And the more feedback we get from that, like then they see it's actually a demand. So that's pretty much us. I could have made the presentation longer, but I thought really, at least it's 8 p.m. on my clock. It's probably later in some of the other people's time. I want to kept it like short and to the point. moving on to the ask a question. Hold on. Do you have any tools to simplify trading for noobs? Less clicks, etc., to complete actions. Do we have the tools that I can give you like, oh, use this right now? I don't. But if you think it's valuable, it's like that's the thing that you want from us, we can actually discuss it. So what we offer is the fastest connectivity to the Ethereum network. And that is valuable because, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's about hearing about blocks fast, sending your data fast. Otherwise, you're kind of like acting on outdated information. That being said, we built probably 3-4 different services from customers who said, oh, we really would appreciate that service, and that's valuable for us. And so if you whether that's on Twitter, whether that send us an email or something like this, like, oh, here's my problem. This is what I'm trading this way. And the fact that I have to go there and then MetaMask open up for me, and then I have to click that and then approve that, it's all. By the time I'm done with that, it's already 3 seconds. And as I mentioned, that means that 30% of the cases you just lost out. The game had changed, prices had changed. We could do something like that, but I would also tag MetaMask or on something like that in order to get things moving even faster. At this point, anybody feel free to throw questions into the Ask a Question tab. And while that is happening, I'll take the time and taking it slow down. Oh, I've been speaking a bit fast. I hope that was still clear, even so. A lot of the question that we get from people about what we do is kind of like, first they say, why are you building this infrastructure? Like, why did you build it? Is it safe? Is it and all these guys. So why are we doing it at all? And then I'm going to answer that. A lot of what we do is about scalability. And they say, I thought scalability is a completely different thing. So while we're waiting for more questions on that, let me throw 2 things your way. And I know you guys are mostly traders, and so therefore would rather not have, the dev talk and kind of oh, let's do this protocol change, et cetera, et cetera. The reason bloXroute exists, I have a PhD in computer networks, from Northwestern University. I was way towards going to academia. And I started bloXroute along with my then advisor and now co-founder, Professor Kuzmanovic, because we realized that everybody in crypto are talking about, first, most people are cryptographers, but there are no networking people here. So what I just explained in this presentation, that, oh, well, you have to hear about blocks faster. And that means how many opportunities can you capture in your trading? It's our bread and butter. It makes total sense for us. But it wasn't so obvious in crypto. And the mission of bloXroute is really scaling blockchains. Okay, the idea is that we support very large blocks. They can propagate among all the nodes super quickly all around the world. And that A is good for crypto, but B is also good for us, right? Any service that we give out there, like the one I'm just talking about right here, when you do it at, Ethereum is doing 15 TPS right now. 15 is almost interesting, but at 15,000, then numbers really add up and are really nice. So any service you give at that. And so we created bloXroute. As I mentioned at the beginning, bloXroute is connected to most pools out there. This is being used. And I think we reduced the uncle rate in the past 2 months by 30% or something like that. So we are really helpful for pools and miners. That's who we work on our daily basis. But that puts us in a unique position. Nobody else out there in the world is as well connected to the mining pools of Ethereum as bloXroute. Literally no other company. There are a few companies who are trying to do networking things, but it took us something like 2.5 years to build a network that's that's not at the speed of light, but not that far off behind it. I'll give it a few more either seconds or minutes in order to see if there are more questions coming up.
Did you answer the questions in the Ask a Question tab?
Yeah, there was one. No, I missed. I thought the first was okay. Yeah. William, you asked a question. It was voted up, and I somehow just jumped over you and moved to the next one. So first of all, sorry about that. Can you elaborate on front-run protection and how it is achieved? Yeah. So blockchains are open by nature, right? Anybody can connect to it, and the way it works, without going into the technical stuff, when people make transaction, when you're trying to make a trade, you take that transaction and you send it to everybody. Everybody in the world sees all these transactions. These transactions kind of like float, and then every so often, some miner or some pool aggregate them and create a new block. And these blocks create the blockchain. It's very hard to prevent front running, okay? Because when you send a transaction, everybody can see it, everybody can front run it. In order to achieve front running protection, you give it, to an extent, it's not completely trustless, right? You like give us a transaction. If we were malicious, at this point I could have front run you. I have better things to do. I have bigger fish to fry, but theoretically I could have. What we do is that we leverage the fact that we are the only company that is connected to most pools in Ethereum, and achieving that took a really long time and a lot of effort from a very, very strong biz dev team. And we tell them, like, we have a channel with them. We give them a transaction and say, here's a transaction, please include it in the block, don't broadcast it. Now, this is a paid service because it actually requires pools to change their behavior. Usually they get a transaction, right, to do what they do, but broadcast it to everybody else. And here we tell them, please don't broadcast it to anybody else. And so that's pretty much it. It's not very, very complicated. Just like you give us a transaction, we give it to them. We don't broadcast it. They don't broadcast it. We don't give it to too many pools, because then if it leaks out, it's very hard to identify where it came from. And so think of it like giving it to a very few but very big pools, and voila, you achieve front-running protection. It's not like, oh, there is a ZK there's a zero knowledge proof around the transaction which you hide and only then some. No, it's very simple. We just don't. You give it to us, we give it to the pools, they mine it, and nobody broadcasts it. So does BDN only work for proof of work networks? What is your guidance for proof of stake networks? That is actually, or let's clarify that. bloXroute works for any blockchain out there, proof of work or proof of stake. Why is that? What we do is the following. We hear all these transactions that, as I mentioned, like they're floating around, and we make sure that everybody are kept in sync. So we hear of these transactions, and then we send it to everybody. And here are new transactions. Here are new transactions. Here are new transactions. And if everybody knows all the transactions, then that allows to propagate blocks very, very fast. Why is that? Because let's say that, PK, let's say that you're a miner. You just mine the block. That block is like, what's the timestamp and the version and like and then just a long list of all the transaction it includes, something like 200. Well, now you need to send that to your peer. What bloXroute does is that it allows you to send that send that block and say, oh, here's the header, and here I have transaction 5, then transaction 14, then transaction 47, and then 105. And the other side, if he knows exactly the same transaction, actually know what, when you say 5, 14, 40, and 107, he would know what you mean. So on the wire, we have to send smaller pieces of data. That has nothing to do whether it's proof of work or proof of stake. In a proof of work network, well, the miner needs to get that block to everybody else, so the next block could be mined on top of it. In a proof of stake network, Somebody want to propose a new block. He takes that block and he needs to send it to everybody else, whether that's within the shard or whether they're out there, because they need to sign it. If you make the block 10 times bigger, it takes 10 times longer to reach everybody. So you have to increase the time between blocks by the same factor. This isn't focused on the BDN, so I'm sorry if I'm slightly going to the technical of how the BDN works, but to focus on that question, it's really not about proof of work or proof of stake. It works for both. We're actually one ontology as a proof of stake network that we're blockchain that we're working with. And we have all the intention in the world once ETH 2.0 or ETH 1.5 roll-up centric, as Vitalik recently called it. We have, it worked for that just as well. Our focus is about sending blocks faster, and that could be blocks signed with proof of work or signed by a lot of people who signed with their stake. It's agnostic completely. Regarding, million questions. Regarding mempool data, mining pool MEVs, can you tell us more about what the Ethereum mining pool landscape looks like? Is there a good resource listing all the pools? Actually, seeing all the pools is kind of easy. A website I enjoy using is btc.com. So if you write eth.btc.com, you go to that website, there's at the top, there's mining stats. You get to see how many, each pool, how much hash power each one has, empty rate, uncle rate, everything around that. It's just easy to it's very easy to digest. MEV is a big thing. Okay, a lot of people are worried about it, and with reason. You see some miners and pools going in that direction, but it's actually solvable. I have something that we're working at the back end on something to assist with that as well. Hold on, I'm leaving it at that. I don't want to make this discussion about MEV. We can go back to that maybe after I answer a few follow-up questions. PK continue asking about the proof of work versus proof of stakes. So how can POS validator work with your technology stack to help support the network as the move to POS consensus? Two ways. The easiest way, okay, is if you're a validator, that means that you run a node. Your node is randomly connected to a bunch of other nodes out there. In addition to connecting to everybody else, connect also to a bloXroute gateway. You can either run your own or you can connect to one that we're running or hosting gateways as well. And that's it. That's all there is to it. You're connected to a bunch of random ones. Connect also to us. Everybody, you don't trust us in any way. If we give you a block, you don't trust us. You validate it just like you got it from any random node out there. The only difference is that blocks would come super fast through bloXroute. You'll just hear about it faster through us. And when you mine in your block, or if it's a proof of stake consensus, you got all the signatures, you send it to everybody, send it also through our gateways. The only difference is that when you send it, let's say that you send it to a random node, so you have to take the block and send it on the wire. When you send it to us, the block is first compressed, so you replace each 500 byte transaction with a 3-byte ID. You compress it by a factor of 100 or so. Send it, it reaches to everybody else on the other end, and everybody else decompress it and see it and get it. So that's the easiest thing you could do.
Yuri, so we're slightly over in terms of time. Do you want to finish up your thought?
Yes. Just want to. I think I answered PK on that. Cryptoscopia, I'm sorry I didn't get to answer yours. Feel free to reach out to me either on Twitter or send me an email. Really, we're the networking people that propagate stuff fast. Okay, that's helpful for users, for traders, for miners, for pools, etc. Depending on what you do, just go to our Discord channel or reach us on Twitter or whatnot kind of thing. We are very, very helpful. I actually have a good answer to the light clients, but Christopher, reach out to me. I don't want it's going to be too long. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for your questions. And I hope it was at least interesting and helpful.
Yeah, that
Have a
was
good night,
great.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.